Take me back to Janky Town. I wanna get back to Janky Town.
Yeah, I mean, knowing you, that there's, automobiles and toilet mobiles. I think there's a
Toilet-mobile's a great word, too.
comfort zone for you that involves utility and function and something. I don't know. Maybe you could go get psychoanalyzed and get a better explanation of that. But
I've been psychoanalyzed once or twice.
mm-hmm.
You? Is that too personal a question?
Well, when I think about being psychoanalyzed, I think about psychoanalysis, which I think is a field of psychology.
Okay.
Specifically. So for me to say I've been psychoanalyzed, I feel like would be a lie because I've never met a psychoanalyst. But I have been in therapy, and my therapist I don't think would subscribe to the idea that she psychoanalyzes me.
So that's a very specific.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so define to me in your view the difference between being in therapy and being psychoanalyzed.
I think being psychoanalyzed follows theories of psychoanalysis.
Like Freud?
Could
basically?
be, yeah. I don't know I don't know what came from where, but psychoanalysis, would maybe be like, well, Colin is seeking utility in his life because his mother could never cook his meals well enough, and I don't know.
Oh, so a psychoanalyst will actually say back to you what your truth is?
I'm not sure, actually. This is essentially disinformation at this point. But
wild conjecture.
I mean, yeah, I don't think I'm sure I've been psychoanalyzed in the loose sense by like two people talking about you behind your back. Like, what is it with?
That's actually right. So the fact that you would seek out psychoanalysis is somewhat ironic because I feel like anytime you leave a room, you're potentially being psychoanalyzed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, ideally not. So it's sort of rude, you know?
Yeah. I kind of like just...
Yeah.
I don't know what this says about my ego. It's flattering in a way. Sometimes it's... and this is funny, Prince is coming up again. I read somewhere that Prince had microphones installed in the bathrooms in Paisley Park. So...
yeah.
Have you heard this?
I bet he did. No, I haven't heard it, but it sounds.
So he would like listen to what the people, because this is another bathroom thing. It's one of the only stations of privacy that remains. Mm-hmm. So that's where like sort of the musicians supposedly out of earshot could actually like talk freely about if they were frustrated or both good and bad, but presumably they were maybe what's the word? Commiserating over some gripes or something like that. And then I don't know if Prince immediately brought it up or brought it up later, but the point was that he was like listening to it. And the person that was telling the story was like, man, like he must have had I guess I forget what he said about his ego, whether it was like really big or really sturdy. I guess really sturdy, like a really sturdy ego to be able to just seek out what other people were saying about him behind his back.
It occurs to me as something someone who was insecure would do. Yeah, is that the same as a sturdy ego?
No, I would say different.
Yeah.
I would say the opposite. But that's what's funny is it's kind of you could kind of go either way on it. Someone that's super insecure would do that. Mm-hmm. But if you had a strong enough ego, it would actually be an incredible political tool to know exactly what people thought about you.
Mm. Yeah. I guess if you were an individual with that much influence, and I guess if you were someone that someone would want to take things from or take advantage of, I can see why you would bug the bathrooms. If you had,
I don't know if it was that sinister, but I see what you're saying.
I don't know why. I mean, I guess I imagine he would want to know what people think because maybe he wants to know if someone is going to betray him or go into his vault.
I guess it is. At its heart, it is somewhat a little bit sinister if you're going to that length to bug the bathroom surreptitiously. But
Yeah, it's
Alleged Prince.
sounds better than what went on in Michael Jackson's house. So
I'm not touching that. I haven't watched the documentary.
yeah, neither have I.
But you know what was funny about the thing about MJ and Prince that's funny to me is growing up they were always compared.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I studied MJ and the more I studied Prince, I was like, these two guys are nothing alike. Like in just personality wise, they just seem so different. We're like, they both, I guess, have like, you know, the ethos of the pop star, but even their music seemed very different to me. They seemed like their motivation for doing things was so different. Even though Prince was like kind of crazy, he also had seemed like this very, and they both had crazy work ethics for sure, but they just seemed like Michael Jackson seemed to me, the more I studied him, the more and more like sort of psychologically hurt he was. And Prince, the more and more I studied him, it seemed like the more and more he really just seemed like this almost pretty grounded person. But then they both died 6 years. I think MJ was 50, Prince was 56 from drug overdoses because of pain. So it was like, I hope that's a fair assessment of how they died. But so it was funny how when the cards all came crashing down, it ended up being kind of a similar story, which was just like a weird little, at least, you know, a superficially similar story. That's all I have to say on that.
I mean, one key distinction I see is that Michael Jackson was part of the Jackson 5. I don't know how much choice he had in his path in life, whereas I believe Prince, for what I know, knew what he wanted, basically just got it, and if he didn't get it, it was like he was shit out of luck. Like it just, you know, there was no Prince 5.
Both true. Both had musician fathers that I think they had. But you know what? Reading, I bought the Beautiful Ones. Have you heard of that?
Maybe.
It's it was gonna be his autobiography, co-written with this guy, but he died while it was basically just getting underway. I think there's like 20 some pages that he had down, and they're in the book, and then the guy writes a really nice introduction, and there's a lot of like early photos. It's really good. I love that book because it shows you, and this informs what I said previously, but it shows you really how, for building such a big myth around himself, he was almost like anti-myth. Like he didn't like describing music as like magical. He didn't really prescribe to any of those things. He seemed like he was very, very grounded. I mean, he had his spiritual beliefs, which I guess you could analyze, and I think he was a Jehovah's Witness. So, I mean, religion in this day and age, in general, seems like kind of a kooky to a lot of people. It's almost mainstream to kind of like poo-poo religion, but yeah, you could see his motivations from when he was very young. But the point I was trying to make was it seemed like he was almost harder on his mother than he was on his father in the book. I mean, it seems like it was a pretty what's the word? Clear-eyed observation of the two of them as individuals. And he definitely, you know, like he had a lot of love for his mother too, but it seemed like he was you know, went and decided to live with his father when he was young, and so it didn't seem nearly as fraught of a relationship. Although, you know, it seemed like MJ to the bitter end, like really had like a pretty steadfast respect for his father and his whole family too. But
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a psychoanalyst, but
here we are psychoanalyzing.
Prince seemed to embrace femininity, and had a relationship with it, and maybe you could infer that there is some internal dialogue with his first kind of feminine role model, which would be his mother. So I don't know. Do they bear in your relationship? I don't know.
I don't know. It's a good question.
We definitely don't know.
Scholars will. I like saying how scholars will.
Yeah.
What's a scholar? Yeah. Prince and MJ. What a duo.
I bet.
It's another duality, by the way.
I bet they had amazing toilets.